It is Sunday, June 1st, 2025. The time is, hold on. Still not? 9 p.m. Day 20 of, so we're halfway there once I get through today. This series has been me reading, one day at a time, 40 Days of Doubt, Devotions for the Skeptic. Reading one day at a time. Each day presents a question from a Christian author. He tries to explain it, I guess, and it's directed towards doubters and skeptics. And I guess it's a halfway point, so I'll give my little, before I read this chapter, I suppose. I don't know, man. Some of the things in the way he goes about talking about stuff seems to go on. He seems to go on tangents. I'm not sure, I don't really like the way this book is kind of, I like the idea of the way the book is set up, but there's just some things that just seem slightly off. It's just not the most well put together, I suppose. And it does become it starts to make me question, am I reading a book? It just becomes another interpretation is what I'm saying, which is a huge flaw with the Bible in the first place. Is it's all just human interpretation anyways. So now I'm just reading an interpretation of an alleged word of God from a man who was allegedly God. But this whole series isn't really supposed to be me talking about Christianity necessarily. It's me talking about this Christian's Christianity. And that leads me to, is it this is something, okay, this might be an interesting chapter. And after I read this chapter, I will also read my original response last year and give it. But you guys know I'm big on questioning things. So, day 20, is it a sin to have doubts? When I was 16, I went to an amusement park, Six Flags over Texas, in Dallas, with a group of my church because it was Christian Family Day, and they were planning to host a big Christian concert that night. I had a great day filled with roller coasters and flirting with girls, and then it came time for the concert in the outdoor amphitheater. There were a couple of opening acts, and then the headliner, Gospel Music Hall of Famer Twila Paris. By the time she took the stage, it was dark, and we were up on a hill so we could see for miles. I saw lightning in the distance coming closer by the minute. Soon we were hearing thunder too. The wind picked up, and then came the rain. Twyla and her band left the stage at once, but before her audience left, Twyla ran back out like a boss and offered to play one more song, her most famous hit called God is in Control. The crowd went nuts. Twyla screamed into the mic, "I know it's ugly out there, but I know this song is true, and we know God will hold back the storm and let us worship him." And the people were so happy. That was the first time I ever remember looking at a bunch of Christians and thinking, I'm not like these people. I loved God and Twyla as much as the next guy, but I knew a funnel cloud when I saw one. And sure enough, halfway through God is in Control, the wind got crazy, the power went out, the band rushed off stage. I got up and ran as fast as I could towards the parking lot. By the time I reached the church van, a tornado had touched down less than a mile away, water coming up past my ankles, and hail fell from the sky. Ever since that night, I thought twice about before saying something like, God is in control. Whenever I hear Christians say something like that, I can't help but think about the tornado that interrupted Twyla and about people who are going through some real-life storms of their own. How does God is in control sound to someone who's lonely or someone who's lost a child or a couple who can't get pregnant? If God is in control of your awful, painful circumstances, what does that say about God? I remember the ride home on the church van. It might have been the first time I ever doubted God. I wonder if my doubts made me a sinner. And since that night, I've met hundreds of others who sit on the fence of faith and wonder the same. Christians have to be careful when saying things like God is in control because we might be misrepresenting God. When someone who has doubts about God gets the impression that being a Christian means having all the answers and never doubting him, that person may also get the impression they don't belong with Jesus because they can't reconcile their real-life experiences with a loving God who is always in control. The fact is, we Christians come from a long line of doubters. All the great biblical heroes had their doubts, and that includes Jesus, who wasn't always so sure about the whole crucifixion plan. Luke 22:42. What makes the people in the Bible heroes isn't just what they what makes people in the Bible heroes isn't just what they did. It's that in spite of their doubts, they did it anyway. Noah doubted, but he still built the ark. Genesis 6, verse 11 through 22. Abraham doubted, but he still left his father's house and meandered into the desert to meet God, Genesis 12, verse 1 through 4. Moses doubted, but he still stood up to the Pharaoh, Exodus 3. Mary doubted, but still said, I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled, Luke 1, 38. Sarah doubted, but she still tried to get pregnant, even though she was 90 and her husband was 100, Genesis 21, verses 1 through 5. Regardless of your religious orientation, we can all agree that's a noble effort. You can doubt and be a Christian. The question for Christians isn't whether or not you have doubts, it's what you do with your doubt that counts. Jan Martel writes in The Life of Pi, if Christ spent an anguished night in prayer, if he burst out from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? Then surely we are permitted to doubt. But we must move on. To choose doubt as a philosophy of life is akin to choosing immobility as a means of transportation. It's okay to say we don't understand everything that happens in the world. We don't know why bad things happen to good people or why tornadoes interrupt Christian concerts. It doesn't water down our faith to say we don't know, because faith isn't about having all the answers. It's okay to doubt, but it's toxic to let your doubt paralyze you. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's having some doubts in following Jesus anyway. Okay, fair enough. Let's see what I wrote last year in my response to that. Make no mistake. If God, as you believe him to be, is real, then he is in control of your awful, painful circumstances. But I don't blame you for wanting to distance that fact from those Christians that suffer or doubt. But regardless of intent, I do think it's important to allow doubt with any system of belief. And I agree it's okay to not understand everything. But if your doubt leads you into faith, it shows you are uncomfortable in that lack of understanding and that you need a fallacious God to entrust security in those gaps of knowledge. Yeah, I like how I agree with myself a lot from last year. I thought I'd be disagreeing more. But first off, yes, God is, you know, we can honestly skip that at this point because it's another one of those God's all-knowing and all-powerful, so he is in charge of your pain and all that stuff. So we'll skip that. But again, the intent of doubting. Yes, I really think it's important to doubt, and any system of belief that doesn't allow doubt is extremely dangerous. That doesn't allow skepticism or criticism is extremely dangerous, and just not a good thing, in my opinion. But faith is not being comfortable with that lack of understanding, because it's an answer. It's an answer of, it's weird because it's almost like an answer of, it's a non-answer. So it's like, it's saying you don't know, but you also know like that. But because of that, as in God, you don't need to know this. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily you being comfortable with not knowing. It's you putting your uncomfortability into faith. So it's kind of like shoving it deeper down inside and just being like, well, God, you know, I'm sure God's got it. So it's not being comfortable with the unknown. It is pushing the unknown deeper inside of you and replacing it with a faith. And whether you disagree with me or agree with me, always question why.